Okay. So the subject of vegetarianism seems to be a very, very uplifted, moral concept. At the same time, well, there are different views on it. Right? We'll hear from Rav Kook that he did view it very positively. At the same time, the Gemara says, "Ein simcha ela basar v'yayin." The only true happiness is when you have some meat and wine. I'm not much of a wine guy, but I do enjoy my meat. The karbanot, the sacrifices were brought with obligatory parts of it that need to be consumed. So let's take a little look at the history over here. Let's take a look at how it was viewed through the lens of the Torah and the changes that came about and how we are going to understand those changes and how those changes then affect us today. Okay? And how it should impact on our views and our understanding today. Okay, so of course it all begins with Adam and Chava, Adam and Eve, right there in Bereshit. Vayomer Elokim, and God said, Hinei natati lachem, behold, I've given you et kol esev zorei zera, all of the herbs that give forth their seeds, asher al pnei kol haaretz, that's on the face of all the land, vet kol ha'etz, and all the trees, asher bo pri eitz, which have on it fruits of the tree, zorei zera, which give forth their seeds, lachem yihye le'achla. To you it is being given to eat. Ulechol chayat haaretz, and to all the beasts of the land, ulechol of hashemayim, and the birds of the heavens, ulechol romeis al haaretz, and everything that crawls, moves upon the earth, asher bo nevesh chaya, which has a living spirit. I've given a kol yerek esev la'achla. I've given all of the yerek, all of the herbs, to eat, vayhi chen. And it was so. So what's very, very clear is that Adam and Chava, what was given to them to eat? Plant life. The vegetables and the fruits. The animals were not given to them to eat. Now, there are different views. Let's hear this Rashi and hear this Rashi carefully. And you tell me what you think Rashi would hold about an animal that I didn't kill, but that is dead. Let's hear the Rashi. Lachem yiyeh li'achla u'lecho chayat ha'aretz. To them it'll be to you for eating, and for all the beasts of the fields. Hishva lehem behemot v'chayot l'ma'achal. The Torah equates the animals and the beasts along with mankind when it comes to eating. V'lo hirsha la'adam l'ishto la'amit bria v'le'echol basar. Adam and his wife were not allowed to kill an animal v'le'echol basar, in order to eat the meat. Ach kol yerek esav yochlu yachad kulam, but all of the herbage, vegetables, that they could eat together. Ukeshabo b'nei Noach hitir lahem basar. But when b'nei Noach came along, now meat was permitted to him. Shneimar says kol remes asher uchai. We'll see the pasuk later, right? All that crawls, ki yerek esav, like the vegetation that they allowed to Adam, I'm giving to you, Noach. I'm giving it all to you, Noach, to eat. So what would you say Rashi would hold about an animal that you did not kill? Bring me a proof from Rashi's wording. What would Rashi say about an animal that died? You didn't kill it, but it died. Are you allowed to eat it or not?
Does it meet all the categories? Problem categories?
Namely?
Is it a pig? Is it a cow? Is it a...
We haven't had any of that yet.
Oh, okay.
There are no restrictions.
All right.
We don't find by Noach any such. Even by Noach, when it's allowed, we don't find. No. You don't have to watch it. Just we don't find any such restrictions from pig or anything like that. So from Rashi's wording, Rabbi Sai, what do we see from Rashi? Are you allowed to eat meat that you didn't kill or not? Bring me a raya, bring me a proof from Rashi. What does Rashi say? I personally see two contradictory proofs. David, what do you see?
Oh, he doesn't say anything about whether it's living or dead. You're just allowed to eat the meat.
He said you're not allowed to eat the meat. But what does Rashi say?
Wait, he says you're permitted to eat meat.
That's by Noach.
Yeah.
That's the latter half of Rashi.
Mm-hmm.
But what does he first say? We equate behemot and chayot when it comes to eating with humanity.
Yes.
V'lo here shela adam leishto, Adam and his wife were not allowed to do what? What does Rashi say?
Eat meat.
To kill. No, he doesn't say to
kill.
eat.
To kill.
He says to kill
Kill the animal.
a living being and to eat that meat. Seems according to Rashi,
So one could argue that if it died by itself.
if it died by itself, roadkill, I don't know if they had that in those days, right? But if it died on its own, whatever the case is, right? He would be allowed to eat it. But yet he says something afterwards that seems to contradict that. What does he say by Noach? Ukeshabo b'nei Noach, when the sons of Noach came along, what does Rashi say? Hitir lahem basar. What does Rashi say now became permitted?
To eat meat.
Meat. To eat meat became permitted. What should he have said? Based on what we just said a moment ago, what would have changed then according to Noach?
Only living.
Right? That he shouldn't have said now they're allowed to eat meat. He should have said now they're allowed to
Kill animal.
kill animals. So from Rashi, I personally hear contradictory inferences that can be made about animals that you don't kill. Tosfot has a very, very interesting way of proving, of deriving a proof for one of these opinions. Let's hear. Tosfot and Sanhedrin, I only have it in Hebrew, not English, but I'll translate for you. Achol tocha v'lo evim min achai. You're allowed to eat. That's what it says later on by Noach. He's allowed to eat. V'lo ever min achai. V'hadam rin l'kamad, that we say later on, lo hutar la'adam harishon basar la'achila. Tosfot says that we did not allow meat for Adam to eat. Haynu lahamit v'le'achal. He says clearly what was prohibited? To kill the animal and to eat. Aval meita me'eleha, if it died on its own, sharia, it was permitted. V'atalav fuke evim menachai dafilu nafal me'alav asur. And that's why we needed to prohibit a limb from a living animal, because there, even if it fell off on its own, what's the din? What's the law?
You're not allowed to eat.
You're not allowed
meat
to
from a living
eat it.
animal.
Right? So whereas if the animal falls off, dies, Adam could eat it, but Ever min achai, a limb from a living animal, that one is not allowed to eat.
But when did it become that if it dies by itself, you can't eat it?
When did it come about that if it dies by itself, you can't eat it? You tell me, when did that come about?
The Torah.
Once the Torah was given. Once we were commanded the mitzvah of shechita, that's when any other means of its death will not allow it to be eaten. right? But Noach didn't have to shech the animals. We'll see different opinions. If anyone, even if after Matan Torah, if after Matan Torah, did they need to shech the animals before they entered Israel or not? That's not so simple. That's actually a debate.
That's what they ate.
Not
cheese.
between the Orthodox and the Reform, but between Rabbi Yishmael and Rabbi Akiva. I'm
That's
sorry?
why they ate cheese.
Okay, so there are those, Chai Rivka is referencing, there are those opinions that explain why do we have this minhag to eat dairy on Shavuot. Shavuot is the time of the giving of the Torah. Why do we have the minhag to eat dairy cheesecake? Right, because we like cheesecake. But besides liking cheesecake, why do we have this minhag to eat dairy products? Right? And one of the reasons given, which will go only according to one of the two opinions that I mentioned, is that, well, once the Torah was given, now all of a sudden all their meaty stuff was problematic. It wasn't kosher, shchita, melicha, shechting, salting, all these things. So it was easier just to have some cheese, have some milk. Okay. Let's hear the Rambam. The Rambam, Maimonides, the very bottom of, and we have it both in Hebrew and English. So the Hebrew is on the bottom of page 1. The English starts on page 2 there. Very, very fascinating Rambam in the background that he gives to us. The Rambam says, Al Shisha Dvarim Nitztava Adam Harishon. Interesting. He says that Adam was only commanded 6 things. What are the 7 Noahide mitzvot?
Comment upon a Noachide.
I know. Thank you. That's but what are the 7?
Oh, we have
System of courts.
System of courts.
Don't kill.
Don't kill.
Don't eat.
Don't murder. Don't kill. Don't murder. Okay.
don't desecrate Hashem's name.
Don't curse out Hashem's name. 4 more.
Cruelty to animals.
Aver min achai. Limb from a living animal. Good. 3 more.
Stealing.
Don't steal.
Don't steal.
2 more.
Don't murder.
We already had that one.
Neighbor,
Sorry?
neighbor, do not take your neighbor's.
No, that's all part of the court system that we mentioned.
Immorality.
Adultery and idolatry. It's the big 3, which is murder, idolatry, adultery, or incest, any sort of forbidden intimate relationship. And then you have the limb from the living animal, you have stealing, you have cursing God, and you have setting up a court system. Rambam says 6 of those were commanded to Adam. What are those? Avodah zarah, idolatry, Big Hashem, cursing God's name, murder, Gilui Arayot, the forbidden relationships, thievery, and court system. Even though these are all things that we've accepted from Moshe, Vadat nota lehen, and these are logical things, right? We'd say I don't need someone to command me about them. Michlal divrei Torah, right? They are part of the divrei Torah. These are the 6 commandments that were commanded to Adam. Yirshal Elun Itztaveh Hosif L'Noach Eivim Men Achai. And 1 more was added on to Noach. What was added on to Noach to these 6? The limb from the living animal. Shneimar Ach Basar B'Nafsho Damo Lo Tochlu Nimsa Sheva Mitzvot. There are 7 mitzvot. Now the Kesef Mishnah sees from here that according to Rambam, not like the Tosfot we just saw, according to Rambam, Adam was not allowed to eat any animals. How does he see that? From the fact that Avram and Achai, the limb from the living animal, was only commanded later by Noach.
Well, if he couldn't kill an animal, how was he going to eat it?
No, but if I can't kill it, but I can eat if it dies.
What do you mean, disease or something? Who knows? It starts to deteriorate and decay.
Well, I get it fresh. You know, the lion kills it, I chase away the lion, and I have myself a nice supper. Right? Right? So, Kesef Mishnah, anyone here? The fact that Rambam left out Aver min Achai, the limb from the living animal by Adam, and only introduced it by Noach, what does that indicate to me? Adam did not need that commandment. That commandment wasn't relevant to Adam. Why was it not relevant?
They are taken care of.
Because anyhow, you can't eat any animals according to Rambam. Rambam understands, not like the Tosfot, Rambam understands that Adam was not allowed to eat meat. Meaning, he had to be a vegetarian. According to Tosfot, Adam was not a vegetarian. Adam could not hunt. But he was not a vegetarian. He was allowed to eat meat that died on its own. Therefore, if you're allowed to eat meat that dies on its own, I need to have that parameter, but not Aver min Achai. Not if it falls off from a living animal, that you can't have. Okay? According to Tosfot, and the way most explain Rashi, Adam was not a vegetarian. But he cannot kill an animal. Therefore, he needed to be warned, and if it falls off while it's alive, that also you can't eat. Even though if an animal dies not through your hands, you're allowed to eat it. But if a limb falls off from the living animal not through your hands, you're not allowed to eat it. Rambam understands, however, that Adam was commanded to be a vegetarian, meaning no meat was allowed to him at all. Whether he killed it, whether it died through any other means, Adam was not allowed to eat meat. Therefore, there was no reason to command to him this seventh mitzvah of the limb from the living animal. Anything from a living animal, one is never allowed to eat. When did that seventh mitzvah, when was that introduced? Only the time of Noach. Why at the time of Noach? Now you can eat meat. Okay, you can eat meat, but you can't eat Aver min Achai. Is that clear?
Aver min Achai means?
A limb from a living animal. Okay? So according to Rashi, Adam was not a vegetarian. Adam was not allowed to kill. But he was not a vegetarian. Therefore, he needed to be commanded not to eat the Aver min Achai. According to Rambam, Adam was a vegetarian. And therefore, right, he did not need to be commanded about the Aver min Achai. It was only Noach that needed to be commanded. And Adam was not allowed to eat any meat products, whether it was something that he had killed, whether it died through any other means.
What did he eat for Shabbat?
The Rambam goes further with a very, very interesting little historical teaching. And that's how it was throughout the world, ad Avraham, until the time of Abraham. Ba Avraham came along, and besides those 7, nitztav yeter al elu b'mila. In addition to these 7, there was a command now about circumcision. V'ud palel shacharit, and he started to daven shacharit morning prayers. Yitzchak hifrish maser, Yitzchak separated tithes. V'hosif tefillah acheret lifnot hayom, and added another prayer, what we call mincha, as the day is leaving. Yaakov hosif gid hanashe, Yaakov added on the commandment of gid hanashe, not eating that sciatica nerve in the back of the animal's leg. Bitpalel arvit, and he davened mariv. Uv'mitzrayim nistave Amram v'mitzvot yiterot, and in Egypt Amram, that's Moshe's father, was commanded with additional mitzvot. Ad sheba Moshe Rabbeinu v'nishlama Torah al yado, until Moshe came and the Torah was completed. Now look back at the Psukim 29 and 30. Rashi said that mankind and animals were allowed to eat the same things. Ramban looks at those psukim and says, actually not. What does verse 29 say was given to mankind?
Seed-bearing herb
And
every tree that has seed-bearing fruit.
And what does 30 say was given to the beasts of the earth and the fowl of the heavens and all that moves?
Every green herb to eat.
Oh. So Ramban says the animals were allowed to eat vegetation. Mankind, vegetables, herbs. Mankind was allowed to eat herbs and
Fruit.
fruit. Interesting. That's how Ramban learns. That there always needed to be this difference between what mankind and animals were consuming. But then it all changed. Right? On page 2, it all changed. Breshit 9, chapter 9, verses 2 and 3. Hashem tells Noach in verse 1, Pru urvu, be fruitful, multiply, fill the land. Umora'achem v'chitechem yihyeh al kol chayat haaretz. And your dread, your fear should be upon all the beasts of the land, v'al kol of hashamayim, and upon all of the birds of heaven. V'chol asher tirmos ha'adamah, upon everything that creeps upon the ground, v'chol degei hayam, and all the fish of the sea, biyedchem nitanu. They have all been given into your hands. In case that's not clear enough, kol remes asher hu chai, every moving thing that lives, lachem yihyeh la'achla. To you now it will be for eating. Ki yerek esev, like the green vegetation that had been permitted to you until now, now all that moves, all that's alive, natati lachem et kol. I've given it all to you. So clearly at this point, mankind, whereas we could debate, and Rambam and Tosfos do debate, was Adam a vegetarian or not? Was he allowed to not only prohibited from killing, or was he prohibited from eating meat? Right? Noach, it is permitted to him. Okay. Without looking at the bottom, that was I mistakenly labeled it as Rashi. I'm sorry, I was in a bit of a rush before the class began. This is actually the Orach Chaim. Why? What do you think? Why would it be that Adam was not allowed to eat? Whatever degree we say he was not allowed. He was not allowed, and now Noach is allowed. Any ideas out there? Janet?
Adam had that intimate relationship with all the animals in such that he named them and he knew their character, and that's a pretty hard thing to do, to be eating them. And also
okay, that's interesting. So Janet wants to say that the animals with their close relationship was like eating your own pet. Right? Even meat eaters, I think, would have a problem eating their own pet, their own dog. Right? So, okay, so Adam had this intimate relationship with them. I mean, Noach was was in pretty tight quarters for a year with them. Probably got to know them pretty well also. Right? Sonny?
I think because they live in the Garden of Eden, everything was taken care of. They don't
That's a good
have
point.
any effort to do anything. Even the animals they eat when they died. They don't have to labor. But once they get out of Garden of Eden, they're on their own. So that's
Okay.
the thing.
Okay, good. Chaim Rivka?
They were only in the garden. They were eating a few hours anyway. They weren't there a whole long time.
Okay. Okay, but nevertheless, right, but that was what would have been the case.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Wasn't enough time.
Yes, Ida.
Adam had to acknowledge that it was God who had power over life and death, and that these animals, along with him, alongside with Adam, were creations of God. So it would take a godlike self-image for Adam to take life and death in his hand.
Okay, but later on by Noach.
Well, Noah had a different relationship with God already.
Okay. Okay. Nice. Nice. Let's
Well,
see.
The fact, this is not an answer, but a question. The fact that the Hamos Tahoros, there were different numbers of animals
Right.
brought into the teva, which see, that they were offered as sacrifices after
Okay.
they were eaten. So it seems that going.
I'm not sure if sacrifices were eaten at that point. I'm not sure. Right? I think, Goyim, the sacrifice that they bring is typically is an ola that gets completely burnt.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? I think that was the typical arrangement. Let's see the Orach Chaim's three approaches. Yesh ladat. We have it both in Hebrew and English. Again, I mistakenly labeled it as Rashi. It's Orach Chaim. Lama lahu tara basar la'adam ela l'Noach. Why was meat not allowed to Adam, yet it was permitted to Noach? V'nira ki Noach mishalo natnu lo. Noach, what was his, was given to him. L'gimel sibot, three reasons. Aleph, sheba emtsa uto matza Hashem l'kayim hamin. V'zula tova he mekayim min aremes below Adam. Uvazezacha ubahem. It was because of him that all of these animals stayed alive. Right? Noach and his family were not involved in the immorality and the thievery that was going on. And the animals that were saved were also those who were not. We say even the animals were having some interspecies liaisons.
So
Okay.
two of each kind, though.
I'm sorry.
There was only two of each kind.
There was those
So
two.
it's limited.
Those two were the ones. Those two were of those that were not engaging in this immorality. But nevertheless, had all of mankind been involved in that immorality, God would not have saved the world for the two giraffes, right? The two giraffes that were straight, all right, that were moral, okay. So therefore, the only reason the animals were alive was because of Noach, and therefore he now had this ascendancy over them. Secondly, bet shehu tarach b'hem v'yagav b'teiva. Unlike Adam, he worked hard to feed them, to take care of them, to tend them in the ark. That Seyul Lamad Kam Yigiyat Yagabahem. Go and see, right? The Midrashim are replete with all of the dealings, the difficult dealings that Adam had to deal with them. Uvazeh Valav Ne'mar Yigia Kapecha Ki Tochel Ashrecha V'Tovlach. Right? So that which he worked so hard for, so that again gave him this ascendancy, this domineering over them. Gimel, thirdly, Shegaram be'emtsa'at korbanos nitoseh Hashem nishbash lo yikaret kol basar. As a result of the sacrifice he brought, that curried the favor of Hashem, and Hashem made a decree, swore that he would no longer destroy all flesh. Therefore, it was Noach who guaranteed their continuity. And therefore Hashem allowed him to eat mipri darko. Okay, yes, Rob.
Doesn't seem to me like any of these three reasons apply to fish. And going back, the dispute as to whether or not Adam or Rishon
Well, that's an interesting question.
Could he only herbs and fruit? I mean,
Right.
I mean,
That's an interesting question.
could he
That's
eat
an
it?
interesting question. Right? There were rivers over there near Gan Eden, right?
And there were plenty of fish probably, because they didn't die in the flood.
Right. And fish occupy an interesting halachic position. Right? There's no shechita on fish. Right? We kill the fish and then we eat it. Birds require shechita, but there's a difference between the shechita of a bird and the shechita of an animal. So there are two, there's the kana and the veshet, the trachea, the windpipe, and the esophagus, the food pipe. Those are called the two simanim, the two signs. Now by a bird, shechita needs to be rov siman echad, the majority of one of those. By an animal, it needs to be rov shnei simanim. You need the majority of two of those. So we have the animals, we have the birds, which require shechita but less of a shechita, and then we have the fish.
It still has to have the scales and.
It needs to be a kosher fish.
Right.
The same way the animal needs to be a kosher animal,
Right.
and the bird needs to be a kosher bird. But once you have those kosher animals, fowl, fish, the kosher animals need to be shechted both simanim. The bird needs to, kosher bird shechted one siman. Kosher fish, right, does not need to be shechted at all. So that's an interesting question, right? It seems that he was not allowed to eat that. The pasuk that permitted it was simply, right? We simply permitted the pri ha'etz, the esev hasadeh, the called esev zarei azera al pnei haaretz, eitz asher pri eitz, right? It seems Adam was not allowed to eat fish. That's what it would seem. Yes, Dov.
I think when the rain stopped, I bet he fed some fish to the birds or whatever the animals that are there. I bet he fed them fish.
When the rain stopped,
Noach, when he started.
yeah,
So I bet he's fishing, but he didn't eat it, but he fed it to the animals.
I don't know.
Probably.
I don't know if there was much of a deck to fish from on the Teva. It doesn't seem that there was.
If none of these three rationales apply to fish or seafood, then arguably Noach would not have been allowed to eat seafood. When his
No, I just, Rob, we're explaining why now it was allowed and prior. Oh, I'm sorry. Right. So if Adam was not allowed to eat, right?
Fish.
So then, and these reasons don't apply. So why was Noach allowed to eat fish? It would seem to me that the fish are considered to be but by the fact that we don't need to do shechita, right? You don't do shechita on a vegetable. You don't do shechita on a fish, right? Right? Certain insects are allowed, right? Certain grasshoppers are allowed, okay? We, meaning non-Yemenites, don't have the tradition of which ones, and therefore we don't eat any of them. But they're kosher. If we know which ones they were, if we have a tradition, right? And the Yemenites, I believe, some of them do eat, right? We find it somewhat repulsive. But in fact, it's probably, I mean, inherently it's no more repulsive than anything else that we eat, right? But we're not used to that, right? So we find it repulsive, right? So the point that I'm trying to make, not very effectively, is the fact that they don't require shechita means that they are less, I don't know, developed or closer to that which we can eat non-discriminately, right? And therefore, it would seem to me that once Noach was allowed to eat animals and birds, then it goes without saying they'd be allowed to eat the fish. That's what it would seem to me. But you're definitely raising an interesting point. Okay, so Noach was allowed to eat, right? That is perfectly clear. How about, what does the Torah have to say about this? So let's go to the psukim in Devarim. Ki yarchiv Hashem Elokecha et gevulcha. That's page 3 of your sources. When Hashem will expand your boundaries. Kasher diberlach, as he told you he would. Right? Meaning, we were entering the land of Israel. V'amart, and you will say, Ochla basar. I will eat meat. Ki ta'aven nafshecha lechol basar. Your soul desires to eat this meat. B'chol avat nafshecha tochal basar. According to the desires of your soul, you can eat basar. You can eat meat. Ki yirchak, next pasuk. Ki yirchak mimcha hamakom. Asher yivchar Hashem Elokecha lasum shemo sham. When the place that Hashem chose wherein He will place His name there, meaning Yerushalayim, well, that will be far from you. V'zavachta mi b'karcha u'mitzoncha. You may slaughter from your cattle, your sheep. Asher natan Hashem l'cha, that God has given to you. You shall slaughter it, interestingly enough, kasher tziviticha, as I have commanded you. V'achalta b'sharecha, then you can eat it in your gates, in your cities, meaning you don't have to do what with it? What would I have thought you need to do with it? Offer it, bring it to Yerushalayim, bring it as a sacrifice, and then eat parts of it. You don't need to do that. V'achalta b'sharecha, you can eat it in your gates, b'chol avat nafshecha, according to the desires of your heart. Now, interestingly enough, one of the proofs that are brought for the divinity of Torah Shebaal Peh, for the divinity or for the fact that an oral law was given along with the written law. So one of the most common proofs or ideas that are brought is the Torah says about tefillin, it should be an ot, a sign on your hands, and it should be a totafot between your eyes. What in the world is an ot? What in the world is a totafot? Nowhere else in Tanakh are these terms explained what it means. And yet every Jew who decides to wear an ot or a totafot has basically identical pairs of tefillin. Maybe he wraps it in, maybe he wraps it out, maybe the 4 parshiot that go in there are in one order like Rashi, or a different order like Rabbeinu Tam. But essentially, you don't have the Jews in the United States and Israel wearing black boxes, and the Jews in Africa wearing green triangles, and the Jews in India wearing purple rectangles, right? Everyone's got the same exact tefillin. So how can you have a Torah that tells you to do something that is completely nondescript and no one has any clue in the world what it means? So obviously, if we're believing that God gave this Torah to Moshe, what's Moshe going to say when Hashem says, and there should be a sign on your hand, and totafot between your eyes, right?
Excuse me, sir.
Excuse me, sir. Sir God, right? What in the world are you talking about? What is an oath? What's a totafot? Right? It will need to be explained. And that will be passed along. But look at this pasuk. When you be far from the place that God places His name, and you may slaughter your animals that God has given you, you may slaughter it, kasher tziviticha, as I have commanded you. Okay? Let's search the Torah to find out exactly how God has commanded us to do the slaughtering. But we don't find anywhere in the Torah any tzivoy, any command as to how to do the slaughtering. So what is meant by as I have commanded you? As I have commanded you orally. Exactly as I have instructed you. But v'achalta b'sharecha b'chol nafshecha. You may eat meat according to your desires. Let's see the Rashi on this. Ki yarchiv, when God will expand your boundaries, limda Torah derech eretz. The Torah is teaching us derech eretz, proper behavior. Shelo yitaveh adam lechol basar. A person should not have this desire for meat. El mitoch rachavat yadayim. V'osher. Only if the person is living with abundance and with wealth. Right? This is a wealthy person's food. Right? And a person who can afford it should not push himself into the financial challenges that will result from this expensive diet. Kol avat nafshecha. The next Rashi. For the desires, the longing of your soul. Aval bamidbar ne'esar lahem besar chulin. In the desert, Rashi says, they were not allowed to eat just regular non-consecrated meat. Elin kain makdisha umakriva shlamim. If you brought a sacrifice, you were allowed to eat meat. If you didn't bring a sacrifice, you were not allowed to eat meat. So according to Rashi, what changed once we entered the land of Israel? What changed?
The sacrifice.
Now, besides being limited to sacrifices, right, one could eat meat even outside the context of bringing a sacrifice.
Oh.
Yes.
Because either at Shiloh or Yerushalayim, there was now a designated place.
Either where, I'm sorry?
At Shiloh or Yerushalayim.
Shiloh?
Shiloh.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was now a designated place for that, and so if you weren't in that designated place,
Right,
then-
as it
then
said,
you would
the
do
place
that.
is far from you. Correct. That's how Rashi's understanding. We'll see in a moment that Rashi is following one of the opinions. Let's take a look at this Sifri. Unfortunately, this Sifri, I'll have to translate for you. It's not translated into English. And we're going to hear three different opinions which will affect how we are going to be viewing meat consumption or vegetarianism today. The Amarta Ochla Basar, the Sifri quotes, the Sifri is a medrash, it's a Torah Shebal Peh. It's bringing different opinions on the verse. Person will say, I'll eat meat, Kitav nafshcha lechal basar, because you have this desire to eat meat. This is quoting Pasuk Chaf, Pasuk 20 that we have up above. Rabbi Yishmael Omer, Rabbi Yishmael says, Magid teaches us, Shebasar Tava Ne'esar Lehem Li Yisrael Bamidbar. Meat that was simply for your own enjoyment was prohibited in the Midbar, in the desert. Umishabola Aretz Hitiru Lahem. And only once we came to the land, only then did it become permitted. Rabbi Akiva Omer, second opinion of Akiva says, Lo ba ha'katav v'lamed ele mitzvot ha'amurot kan. It's now coming to teach us these mitzvot. Le'asor lehen basar nechira. That animal must be slaughtered properly. You can't just kill the animal. Shebitchila hutar lahem basar nechira. Initially, they were allowed to eat meat, even if it was not slaughtered. Umishenichnesu la'aretz ne'esar lahem. And once they entered the land, it now became prohibited. So according to Rabbi Akiva, do they eat meat in the desert?
Yes.
Yes. What changed now that they're entering Israel? What's changing now in terms of their meat consumption when they enter Israel?
Proper shechting.
Shechita. But in the Midbar, you didn't have to shecht,
But you had to be,
which
there had to be a
would
sacrifice.
take away your Shavuos reason, as I mentioned before,
Yeah.
right? Because one of the reasons we had for eating dairy on Shavuos, because now all of a sudden all the things weren't kosher. Well, according to Rabbi Akiva, that would not be an issue,
Okay.
right? The sacrifices needed to be shechted, that which is brought as sacrifices, but regular barbecue did not. Elazar ben Azariah Omer lo ba kaz elamai derech eretz shelo yochal adam basar ella litei avon. Interesting. A person should not eat meat unless he has a strong desire for it. Interesting. So Elazar ben Azariah seems to be minimizing, downplaying meat consumption. Okay? The Rashi that we saw